Welcome back. I hope that quiz went well for you. Today we're moving on to 13.6, which is the law of sines. What the law of sines is simply an equation that we use when we're given a triangle that has angle side angle or angle side information to find a missing side length or an angle measure. One thing we need to make sure that we are aware of is that the triangle does not necessarily need to be a right triangle, provided you have two angles and the included side, or the side in between, or two angles and a side in general in the triangle. So our equations that we're using are the sine of A over A equal to the sine of angle B over side B equal to the sine of angle C over C, or the reciprocals of that. Now you won't use all three of them at once, but you will use two of them at a time to get your information. So looking at this model of this triangle, basically to explain it, it's saying that if we take the sine of angle A and a ratio over side length A, that will be equal to the sine of angle B in a ratio over B, or the reciprocal thereof, which is also equal to the sine of angle C in a ratio to side length C. And remember, it's not necessarily a right triangle. This picture just happens to be shown as such. So let's go ahead, and I like to use the top one. I like to have my sine values, just for complicated purposes, on the top. Although if you feel more comfortable putting on the bottom, that is your choice. So if we take a look at A, I need to find C and I need to find B. So I'm going to start off, recognize that I have angle A and I have side length A, so I need to include that in my information. Now one thing that I do want to also do is find the measure of angle C. So starting off there, the measure of angle C is going to be equal to 180 minus 40 minus 49. Now just for purposes of ease, I'm going to just quickly punch that in the calculator. 180 minus 40 minus 49, and that is equal to 91 degrees. So angle C is 91 degrees. So that's going to help us out when we get further along. So starting off, sine of A, so we have sine of angle A, which is 40 degrees, and that is over side length A, which is 20. And I'm going to start out by finding B, since angle B was given to us, and that's equal to the sine of 49 degrees over B. So now we have a proportion, and we can go ahead and we can cross multiply, which gives us B times the sine of 40 equal to 20 times the sine of 49. Now I need to get B alone, so I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 40. Which means that these will cancel, leaving me with B. So I need to calculate 20 times the sine of 49, all divided by sine of 40. So I will first start with 20 times the sine of 49 and find out that that's approximately 15.1. And I'm going to divide that then by the sine of 40 degrees. And that gives me 23.48239353, on and on and on. So that's approximately equal to 23.5. So I'm going to fill that in on my triangle, 23.5. And now I'm not quite done yet, because I do still need to find out this C value. So to do that, I am going to once again set this up. This time I'm going to still use the sine of 40 over 20. But now I need to take angle C, which is 91 degrees, so the sine of 91 degrees over C because I don't know what it is. So when I go ahead and cross multiply here, now I get C times the sine of 40 is equal to 20 times the sine of 91. I then need to get C alone by dividing by the sine of 40 on both sides, which cancels here, giving me C. So now on my calculator, I want to take 20 times the sine of 91, and that gives me 19.996, so just under 20. And I'm going to divide that by the sine of 40, and that gives me 31.10973765, etc., which means that C is approximately equal to 31.1. So my two values that I needed to find are there, and I am done with the first example. Moving on to the next example, I want you to go ahead and try example B to find the measure of angle C and side AC, and then once you've entered that into Edpuzzle, you can go ahead and continue to check to see if you're right. Let's go ahead and check that out. I have the equations off to the side here in case you need them. And it says here measure of angle A is 32 degrees and AB is 8 and BC is 5. I want to find the measure of angle C and side length AC, which I'm going to call little b. So starting off, finding the measure of angle C. I see that the sine of A is the sine of 32 degrees, and side length A, which is across from it, is 5. Because remember, your side length is always across from the angle that it corresponds with. And I don't know the sine of C, but I do know that side length C is 8. So if I go ahead and cross multiply, that tells me that I have 8 times the sine of 32 degrees is equal to 5 times the sine of C. Well, I can't quite get C alone in one step, but I can divide both sides by 5 to cancel out these 5s. So then that will tell me that if I have 8 times the sine of 32 degrees and I divide that by 5, I will get the sine of C. Now to undo that, we're going to get there in a second. So let's start first by finding out what 8 times the sine of 32 is divided by 5. So 8 times the sine of 32 degrees, and that is approximately equal to 4.2. And we're going to divide that by 5, and we get 0.84787082228, etc. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inverse sine of this, because if I take the inverse sine of both sides, that's going to cancel out the sines and give me C, which is our angle measure. So I'm going to now take the inverse sine, and now to get answer, I'm going to second the minus sign because that'll give me my answer that I just got. And I get an answer of 57.98. So if I round that to the nearest degree, I get 58 degrees. So I know C is equal to 58 degrees. And now that I know that, I can then go ahead and find my third angle. So the measure of angle B is going to be found by taking 180 minus 32 minus 58. So if I take 180 minus 32 minus 58, not 5, whoops, 58, I get 90. Ooh, so that's nice that angle B, despite what my picture looks like, I realize that is going to give me 90 degrees over here. So now I can go ahead and finish this off. I still have the sine of 32, or the sine of angle A, over 5, and that's going to be equal to the sine of 90 degrees over my B. So when I cross multiply here, I get the sine of 32 times B is going to equal to the sine of 90 times 5. So then I divide by the sine of 32. And that'll give me my answer. So we come over here, we take the sine of 90 degrees, and I take that times 5, and I get 5 because the sine of 90 is 1. And I get, now that I have 5, I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by the sine of 32 degrees. And I get 9.4 approximately for B. So 9.4 and 58 degrees would be my two values that I am looking for.